Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast. Before we get going, poor work intake equals out of control. Out of control means high stress, you get less done. It's not good. Mastering Work Intake by Jeremy Willits and Tom Cagley is the path to bring order out of chaos. Buy a copy today, J. Ross Publishing or Amazon. The Software Process and Measurement Cast is on vacation for the next few weeks. Until then, we're revisiting some of the fabulous panel discussions we've had during the last 19 years. We'll be back on June 21st. We're looking forward to continuing the conversation. Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 736. I'm Tom Cagley, your host. Today, we share our year-ending panel discussion with SPaMcast contributors and our dogs. Once they all get started, everybody has to have their say. The topic this year is engagement. Is being on two calls at once really engagement? Does just being present tick the box for engagement? Patterns, anti-patterns evolve, but is engagement really that important? The panelists this year are Jeremy Barrio, Jeremy Willits, Susan Parente, and myself. Let's get started. Welcome to the the end of year 16 of the Software Process and Measurement Cast year, or close enough, and our annual panel discussion. Today, we've got Jeremy Barrio and Jeremy Willits here to kick off, and hopefully later on, John Quigley and Susan Parente will join and dive in on the topics today. But hey, welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having us.
It is always a good time. It is always a good time. You know, it's funny. Over the past 3 or 4 years, I think I get at least 2 or 3 articles, blog posts, whatever, in my email box that tell me that engagement is really the most important thing in terms of getting work done. I'm not sure I buy that. But so I'd like to talk about engagement today, but I'd like to start with how do you two define engagement? Jeremy, why don't you go?
Okay, which one?
Yeah, that was the joke. I wanted to see. All right, Mr. Barrio, you go first.
For me, I determine engagement just staying involved. Like, you don't have to speak up or say anything in meetings, but as long as you're showing interest and being involved in one way, shape, or form, whether it's in a meeting or down like in hallway conversations or just poking your head up above the desk while poking your head in Zoom or Teams to talk to people. That's how I see engagement, whether from a leadership perspective, how you get them to do that. It all depends on what resonates with them to get the juices flowing to start getting involved.
I'll add on to what Jeremy Barrio said. I think my definition is similar, but I'll add on it's almost a bit of a lower bar for me. It's just putting in an attempt to be involved. I think shows to me some sign of engagement. Again, whether it's an attempt to hop on a call and unmute yourself for long enough to say a few things, or turning your video camera on. I know that's been a challenge that I've had in the remote work world. So for me, it's really just making an attempt to be involved and interested.
I think that's a big driver, at least in my definition. People need to be interested in what they're doing and willing to get involved, to Barrio's definition. So it's a combination of things, right? But What are the attributes? So obviously, I think it's showing up, right? Showing up and saying something. That is a fairly low bar. What other attributes would really indicate whether or not somebody's engaged in their job?
Well, it's showing up, like you just said, is the old axiom of 90% of life is just showing up. It's just being in the right place when you're supposed to be at that place. So I think that's where, engagement starts for me. But there's definitely, whether it's, again, the world of remote, the world of not. So traits in the remote world for engagement, I think, are a willingness to speak, a willingness to be seen via video, a willingness to, admit that you can't make a call perhaps because you've got some other sort of commitment happening. In the real world, in the go to the office world, I think engagement probably does look a little bit different because you're able to see everybody, you're able to tell whether they're engaged or not. And, in that world, I at least can do a better job of understanding who's paying attention and who's not. So I think I gave you attributes in there, Tom.
Okay. So if I'm on a call and I'm really interested in it, and I'm also playing Duke Nukem or Pokemon Go or something else on the side, am I engaged?
I would agree. I would agree. No, you're very tacitly paying attention. Maybe.
Yeah.
Why do we?
Well, and it's understanding. Like I'm sure we've all had those meetings where we get in there and it just has no value. There's nothing really being said that's important to what you do or what you're about to do. And yeah, especially now in the remote world, it's really easy to, if your camera's not on, it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to click through whatever web pages. I'm going to play whatever game. I'm going to put myself on mute and listen to music.
You can do that? Does that actually work? Oh, sorry.
Well,
my favorite is being on a call and whether you're facilitating or participating, and you ask somebody a question and they wait a second to take themselves off of mute, and then they hit you with the I'm sorry, I was multitasking, could you repeat the question, or some variant of that, whether they actually admit to it or not. That's when you try and pull engagement out of people that are clearly not engaged, that's definitely a challenge.
I guess I'm really surprised by the fact that at this level of engagement, I actually do see people admitting to the fact and finding that that's okay, right? Oh yeah, excuse me. I was I was taking a nap during that last. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody saying they took a nap. I did have somebody in the middle of, and I wasn't facilitating it, albeit I did shoot my mouth off when I saw it, but somebody pick up their phone with their camera on and start texting. Put their camera right in front of the phone and start texting. It's like, I'd at least have turned off my freaking camera.
well, yeah, like I've had that happen where like a call comes in on my cell phone during the meeting, and normally I would just turn the camera off and I would put in the chat saying, there's a call came in, I'll be gone for a couple minutes, I'll be right back. At least giving them the benefit or like the opportunity. It's like, oh, okay, this is why Jeremy's not on or Jeremy's not saying anything. He had to take an important call. And most of the time it's a really quick call. It's like, if it's non-emergency, then it's like, okay, cool, done. I'll call you back when I need to, when I can in the next hour. I gotta get back into a meeting.
Why is that acceptable? Isn't there such a thing as voicemail? Can't you just let something go to voicemail? I mean, if your children were dying, then I understand that. But what do we do? We're not surgeons. We're agilists.
Yep.
What do we? What does a few minutes, an hour mean in terms of getting back to somebody that you have to interrupt a meeting with 12 other people?
No, and fair enough. And most of the time, it does go to voicemail. But when I recognize the number as either my kid's school or my wife.
Okay. Never mind.
Have either of you ever had a person on one of your calls that is dialed into two calls at the same time? Like they're dialed into a call on their laptop and dialed into a call on their phone?
Yep.
That's like is that an engagement anti-pattern, Tom? Like trying to be overly engaged and prove And sometimes I've had people do that and cop to it and admit to it. I'm like they're trying to be some paragon of engagement by participating in their double booked calendar versus telling somebody nicely, I can't be there because I'm participating in this other thing.
Yeah, I don't know that that's engagement. I might think that's schizophrenia or something else. All right, so Susan, welcome. Glad you're here. Yeah, we got you.
Everybody had headphones on, and I said, I'll get one too. I'll join the crowd.
So I'm sort of hoping for a new headphone for Christmas, but
From Santa?
yeah, from Santa.
Oh, I hope you get it.
It's
You
either-
deserve it.
Yeah.
You've worked hard.
I think so.
There's a guy on Accu Radio that does the commercials that is your voice, and I was wondering if you had a part-time job that you didn't tell me about.
Nope. But
Yeah.
hey, maybe that's a doppelganger of me. So I think we all probably have a doppelganger. Susan, engagement. How do you define engagement?
How do you define it? Oh, this is so funny. Teaching a class. I've just got off a call with another professor, end of the semester. So students like, hey, if I fail this class, I'm out of the program. Like, okay. So I go back to my email. The last time I emailed the student was November 20. No, the last time they emailed me was November 20th, and I responded to them that day. Yeah, so that's a lack of engagement. So it feels like it's easier to define lack of engagement than engagement. So engagement, being present, contributing, adding value, listening, seeking first to understand, as Stephen Covey would say.
Mm-hmm.
Listening is actually engagement. I sometimes I forget that myself because I'm the extrovert, but actually active listening is engagement. In fact, that would be a very good example of engagement is active listening.
I had to sort of wrestle with myself at recognizing that sometimes passive is very active and active is very inactive in terms of at least finding out what's going on. So when you got here, we were discussing all sorts of scenarios where we see people that aren't necessarily engaged. I think you're right. So we can all come up with an example of someone who's not engaged. And then we're going to jump into a slight tip on that. But what's a good example of non-engagement that you've seen?
What is that called? Ghosting? When you just don't respond to somebody?
Yeah.
There's actually like a name for it. The first time it happened to me, I was like, what the heck is going on? What the heck is this? And somebody's like, oh, they're ghosting you. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, that is definitely not being engaged or the person choosing to be. The one person on two calls, is that engagement?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think how I know I've done that at least a few times. I'll be honest with you. And I'm trying to wonder in my mind what made that justifiable. It's usually I'm on some call where I'm listening in and somebody important calls me. So, which could be my boss, my husband, my parents. Those would be all important people. Although boss is more like client, but yeah, I mean, if there's an urgent call coming in and I am not facilitating and actively speaking in the meeting, I somehow think that's okay. It really isn't. So I try to do like in the text, BRB, and put it on mute, turn the speaker down. So then I'm actually just engaging in one thing because you can't really engage in both. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, that's exactly the example that Jeremy Barrio dropped in. Two Jeremys. So we're having fun here with the name Jeremy. So this engagement stuff, right? Why am I getting at least 2 or 3 articles a week or even worse, right? Why does it matter that employees are engaged?
Well, it matters more now because we're virtual. So it's easier to be present and not engaged. Because there's like, okay, so if I turn my video off, and if I stop talking, I'm present and not engaged, right? So so that's easier. Whereas like if we're in person and I'm doing this, it's really obvious I'm not engaged, right? So I know where to hold my phone to look at my phone, and it is not up here. It's anywhere down here, anywhere around here, right? Anyway, so that's one of the reasons why. The other thing is that there's this thing, and maybe it's because people work virtual, they can get away with it a little bit, but people are employed but like not working. Like they're doing enough that you can't fire them, but not enough that you want to keep them. There's a word for it. So like I think it's like it's like silent quitting or something they call it. To me, it's like, the thing with inflation where instead of the price of the item going up, the contents of it reduces.
Yeah.
So like the big popcorn canisters got a little bit smaller, same price. So that people are physically doing that. They're like, due to inflation, I'm giving you 75% of me, but I'm charging you the same amount. So it's like a personal, inflation reaction. I don't know that has to do with inflation, but I'm just saying it's almost the same thing. It's like, I'm going to do enough that you can't fire me, but not enough that you actually are happy with me. And there's like, sadly enough, when you don't give people raises, they feel underpaid. It may be a part of inflation. Like if you're going to give me a 2% raise or a 3% raise when inflation is 9%, I'm just going to work 7% less, and now we're even. So,
especially since most organizations have already jacked their prices up 25%.
yeah. I mean, it may actually have to do with it. It may be like a personal resource response to inflation. I laugh about it, but I mean, I literally have heard people, they call it like silent quitting. And then they're usually probably looking for another job, or sometimes they're not, but they're basically at that point, they don't care if you tell them they're doing a bad job. They're like, okay. And then they'll still get their paycheck. So it doesn't really matter.
So it's obviously one problem with this is a reduction in overall productivity, or
oh yeah. Yeah.
What are some of the others, Mr. Jeremy's? Impacts of lack of engagement. Why do we care about this?
I mean, we'd like to think that engaged people build better products. We'd like to think that they, are going to be ultimately better team members, more productive. They'll care about their company more. Perhaps they'll do the nasty thing they'll work extra, off the clock. I think engagement is such a theme because it's sort of what Susan said about the whole compensation raise thing. If folks aren't getting compensation and raises, and that's a hot button issue, then it's easy for a manager or a CEO of a company to go, well, why aren't my folks engaged? Let's get them engaged more. Let's engage them up.
Engage them up. Well, we'll come back to that engage them up thing. So, Mr.
I have some thoughts about how to engage people. I do hope we go there.
We are going to go there. I promise.
I don't want to leave the call depressed.
This is nearly the end of year. It's time for reflection and feeling good. We have February to get us to a point where, at least in this hemisphere, where we can feel depressed and morose about the rest of the world. That's
good.
Yeah. Mr. Barrio, why do we care?
Well, for me, like from a career perspective, before I'm on my own, every team member or group that I worked with, like one thing I wanted to make sure was what they wanted to get up in the morning to come into work. Right. So if they're dragging their butt to get out of bed and they feel like they have that feeling like, oh, I'm going into work, then yeah, maybe I'm not creating that engaged environment for them to want to come in. But if they're willing to like hop out of bed, get ready, get into work, and just get things going, then you've created that environment where they want to be engaged, where they're doing what they need to do. To what Jeremy says, like doing that little extra, like if they need to stay an extra hour or so just to do stuff. I had one team member once. I had to stay late because just due to time zones, I had late meetings. I didn't get out until 7 in the evening. The developer's still sitting there doing work. I'm like, what are you doing? oh, we just wanted to get this stuff done. I'm like, yeah, but basically you guys were done at 5:00, 4:30, 5:00. You don't have to be here. It's not critical what you're doing. Yeah, but we had a flow going. We were good. We wanted to get it done. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I'm going home. And then I kicked them out of the office too.
I've occasionally kicked people out. I sometimes it's better for them. I mean, I used to code, and I remember at one point it was like midnight in this project. It was just we were totally behind. I'm like, I think I'm creating more bugs than I'm fixing. It's probably a good time to go home.
Yep.
Right. So I've kind of learned that lesson myself. And then I look to other people for that too. Like I know you think it's good to stay here, but you may in the morning decide that was not a good idea, because are you really creating value, or are you just like stressed out and not really doing much? One thing I wanted to say is, when somebody's not engaged, it can be a little bit contagious to other people.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, sure can.
That's probably
Sure
one of the biggest reasons I want people to be engaged, is because if they're not, they can take engaged people and make them unengaged. That would actually be the biggest harm.
Particularly if the unengaged person is a leader of any sort, whether it's a people leader or a technical leader, or even just the person with the most experience on the team that the junior people look up to, even if they don't have a formal leadership role. I've seen that, quite a few times. That's a good point, Susan. Thanks for bringing that up.
And it's actually one of the reasons why. So I've been a manager. I've not been a manager, and I always choose to be a leader. So, like right now, there's a person who I had talked to months ago that was a little frustrated with his job, whatever. I was in a position of somewhat power on what to do, but not total power on it. So I was trying to influence it. I'm probably going to reach out to him and just say, how's that going? I'll tell you, last time I talked to him, he said, I'm glad we had this conversation. I was basically ready to leave the organization. So we had this conversation. Now, I didn't get any thanks from his boss, but that's part of the problem. The boss doesn't really understand. It's like, they do a great job in that role. I don't want to promote them, because what will I do without them? I'm like, well, you're going to find out real soon. If you don't, somebody's doing a great job and you're not giving them an opportunity to further their career. Guess what? You're going to find out what it's like to not have them at all. Instead of putting them in another position, back training the person who was doing their job. Anyone that you say, I'm going to give you a promotion, all you got to do is teach this person how to do your job. They're like, done.
Yeah.
Done. Anyway, I've never known anyone to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to backfill. I just want the promotion, and I'm going to give the person a see you later. No, nobody does that. Everybody is happy to teach someone how to do their job so they can do something else. And I mean, I haven't talked to the guy in a while. I hope he's still there, but his boss does not understand that.
That leads me to, I mean, some of these just seem so obvious, right? So obvious. I would like to suggest that management only owns part of this equation in terms of engagement. Who would you suggest owns engagement?
I think a little bit of everyone.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Oh, that's way too easy.
Folks, folks in our roles, whether you're a Scrum Master, an Agile lead, I think all of us have been in a spot where we end up being the cruise director, party leader, that kind of thing. So we try our darndest to get teams and people engaged. Managers do have part of that equation, but also the employees themselves have part of that equation. I think that's what Susan was driving at with that comment. She wasn't trying to give you the old stiff arm, Tom. I think she was trying to.
I wasn't taking it that way. I just wanted to draw all of that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think people put a lot on managers, and I think some of it is a personality thing. I also think that with what is it they say, with power comes responsibility. So when you learn to be a leader, if you fail to do that role, I think you will not feel good about you. Forget about what anyone will say about it. It's not your job per se to lead, but when you know you can make a difference and then you fail to do so, you know that and you feel it. And I think if you you look at great leaders in our time, people who are famous at leading, they didn't always want to do it, but they always did it because they knew that the buck stopped with them. And I think that we do suffer this, like, oh, the person who's in charge of the contract does that. I'm like, I don't know. I do stuff that I really don't have permission to do, and it either makes a difference or it doesn't. If I get yelled at, somebody's like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that," and I'll say, "Well, here's why I did it, because nobody else did it, and it needed to get done, and I won't in the future. So who's going to do that? What I did, So give me a solution. Don't tell me I did it wrong, So I don't know. I'm a little bit more brazen, I guess, but
Well,
I don't know.
that's
I don't
why
care.
you're not you're what you are, and why you're teaching so many courses, why you're writing books, why you're also on contracts. So, I mean, asking who owns or can motivate engagement on this call is probably asking the wrong people. Why do you think that there are, and I think we can all point to people who don't believe that they own any of the equation of engagement, that it's all somebody outside of themselves that owns engagement? Why does that happen?
Elementary school was too good at teaching you to just do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, maybe. Are they too? They're too heads down, focused on the work at hand to like think about a softer skill like engagement.
Well, and maybe just if you, there, even though groups are agile, put air quotes in there, like agile environment, you still have complete silos where it's like, yeah, that's not my job. They could still do it to what Susan says, like, I'm doing something that technically I'm not really supposed to do in my role, but I can get it done to help everyone out. And like a couple teams that I've worked with, and that's exactly what I've had happen. Is like, I'm a developer, so I'm not going to help out with any sort of testing or anything like that. I'm not going to help out the product manager or the business analyst to write your stories to get things sorted out. I'll just wait till they throw it over the wall and then I'll deal with it then. So yeah, so it's just changing those like those old kind of school behaviors where it's like, yeah, heads down, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do to get the job done. I don't care what everyone else does. They just pass it off to me and I'll deal with it.
I think being heads down is, not to beat this metaphor to death a little bit, being heads down doing your work is head and shoulders above the people who've silent quit or quiet quit or whatever we want to call that. They're not engaged, and they don't believe they have any responsibility to either re-engage or get the heck out.
But okay, but on the silent quitting with that and the heads down, if I'm just a QA, if I'm a tester, used to be a tester, but if I'm a tester, I'm writing test cases,
Once a tester,
and that's
always a tester.
Always a tester. So they just keep pulling me back in. But if I'm heads down with like, this is what I'm supposed to do, then that's all I'm going to do. Like whether I do it like full on or like 70% or 80%, whatever, based on how I feel. But I'm not being engaged because I'm just doing my job. I'm doing what my job title and my role says I'm supposed to do. I'm not engaging. I'm not kind of talking or figuring everything out or kind of taking that step back to look at the forest through the trees. So it's like the term silent quitting, like, and Tom, I've seen those articles too. I get a chuckle out of it because this has been going on for as long as I know, like 30 years of my career. I've seen it. I've done it. I'm sure we've all done it at some point, but it's been around for a long time.
I think it's deeper than that. To be honest with you, I'm, again, someone who's just leave me alone. I'm only going to do what I'm going to do, but do it is not the worst thing in the whole world. That's not the worst thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing just enough to stay to Susan's point, just enough that you can't fire me, and I'll just hang out and, well, I'll bill you for 8 hours and do 35 minutes worth of work and probably line up a couple of emails that sound like I'm around during the day. That to me, somebody's got to own. And if somebody can't own that as being not good for the person who's doing it, not good for the organization, then how do you ever fix it? And I think some of that has to, especially at that level of engagement, has to be a self-recognition that what you're doing isn't equitable to anybody.
Does that almost get into like, I wanted to say something more like morality, but actually maybe it's just integrity.
It's integrity is actually,
Ethics.
Integrity, people think of integrity as being like a moral thing. It's actually not. It's doing what you say and saying what you do. Right. So, you could say that you're going to do a bad thing and do a bad thing. You actually would have integrity. It wouldn't be out of integrity. Like I'm trying to think of something bad. I'm not really a malicious person, but anyway, let's say
I'm glad you can't think of anything bad today.
I was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna drive over something. I'm like, no, that's horrible. I can't drive over anything. Anyway, but yeah, let's say you say you're gonna do something bad, like I'm gonna fire everybody on this team, and you go and fire everybody on the team. You have integrity. You may not be a nice person, but you actually did what you said you do. So the point being is that people think integrity is about doing the right thing. It's not. It's just doing what you said. And so if you put in that you worked 8 hours, you didn't work 8 hours, it lacks integrity. Now, the problem is you can get away with stealing, quote unquote, but that's not, you lacking integrity is a problem then for you. Because when you lie to yourself, that is a problem. If you said to your boss, listen, this place sucks, you're not paying me enough, I am going to put in 6 hours a day from now on, and I'm going to put down that I'm putting in 6 hours a day. Take that.
Well, then you're rationalizing. You're rationalizing your lack of integrity. And Tom loves rationalizing, right, Tom? You love that word.
I love that word. It's one of my favorite words.
That could be. But what if I'm telling them I'm going to put in less time and I'm putting in less time?
There you go.
Actually
then you do have
lack integrity, right? I'm telling you, I'm going to take 2 hours every day to find a new job because this place sucks. And here's my 6 hours. And then, you don't lack integrity. There may be other problems, but at least you're honest with yourself. But I guess the thing is like you said, Tom, is like, how do you take that on? That's your responsibility. Unfortunately, I think people enjoy blaming and being a victim more than they like being responsible. Unfortunately, the part about that is that you look at somebody else that has a life that you want. Most of the times that person probably has that integrity. They are taking responsibility, and they didn't always just win the lottery or get lucky or whatever. It takes something to get there, right? But people can reach that point where they just really just don't care. Maybe there is something we can do about that. But yes, the student who doesn't do something until the end of the semester, it's like, I can do a lot of things, but at some point they have to take responsibility for that to move it forward. It's tough. Once somebody's disengaged, how do you re-engage them? That's real tough. I would say that the lesson to learn there is don't let them get that far, because it won't be easy to get them.
So why don't we sort of wrap this topic, or at least start to wrap this topic up with, if engagement is a problem, what do we as leaders do about it?
I have a solution that I've used.
Has
colleague of
tasers
mine
involved?
No, it does not. Believe it or not, it does not.
That would be malicious. That would be malicious.
That would be out of integrity with who I am. It's having an attitude of gratitude. A colleague of mine wrote a book called Grateful Leadership. I think I've talked to you about it before, Tom.
Yeah.
And actually, they've done studies, and when you have an environment of gratitude where people acknowledge others for the work they've done, it actually increases engagement. They've actually done studies on it. So that is my solution. Now, the thing about that is you can't just say thank you. Can't be trite, can't be fake, can't be disingenuous, because everybody knows it. You know it when you see it. I know when somebody's trying to sell me a used car, right? So it has to be like a true acknowledgement. So I'll give you an example. Tom, you are so great at facilitating these sessions. I love when we do our one-on-ones. The panels are great. How you contribute to me when you do that, you don't just give myself a voice in the world, in our professional world, but you give me a way of looking at things that changes the way I support people in my life, including my students. So that is just, that's how wonderful it is that you facilitate these. Did you get my acknowledgement, Tom?
I'm almost speechless. Yeah, no, thank you. Oh God, thank you.
I could have said thanks, Tom. You're really good at this.
Yeah, no, it's
Not the same.
It is motivating. So grateful leadership is one. How else can we get people re-engaged? I agree, by the way, 100% that even though I think individuals own a lot of their own engagement, as leaders, we have to at least see it so that we can then help move it forward. And all of us are leaders, right? So Jeremy B.
So for me, when I've gone through this a few times where people are like kind of I can tell they're being disengaged, just kind of like quiet quitting, just doing the bare minimum. To Susan's part, yes, the saying thank you being more than just kind of saying thank you, showing what you mean. But I've also done where it's talking with the individual just to see what's going on. Maybe there is something going on external to work that's causing them to be disengaged. And not to be a therapist or anything like that, but just kind of do the good coaching techniques to just kind of let's see where things kind of go. And most of the time I found that they were just bored. Like something's going on. They were just bored with what they were doing. It just seems like they're just kind of being mundane. So then find something like a stretch assignment or something for them to do. I've had a QA, like a system integration tester, and that's all she did. And she didn't do much after that. I had her start doing estimates for the entire department for projects. This was before they were agile. And she was all concerned. She was like, I don't want to mess up an estimate. I don't want to make it look bad. And I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't, it's an estimate. An estimate's an estimate. It's a number. If they don't like it, then we'll just let's rejig it and see what they need. But you're going to be basing this off information where it's almost written on a napkin at a bar. So high level estimate. In about 6 months, she became, out of the 7 QA departments that I was under, she was the best estimator across all seven groups. And it was just giving her that. And I haven't talked to her in like ages, probably about 15 years. But I have her on LinkedIn. She's now a senior manager for some company down in the States. So getting those stretch assignments, like just, especially when they say, it's like, oh, I don't think I can do it. It's like, no, I know you can do it. Go ahead. And if you fail, then don't worry, I'm here to help. And you give them that support, the engagement's going to come back.
I mean, I think what Jeremy and Susan said are both spot on. There's no magic wand and caffeinated beverage that you can consume and wave to get people to be engaged. And it's, as you said, Tom, like the first step is recognizing that there's a problem. So that's the first step of any 12-step program. Yes, I've not been a part of a 12-step program, but I think that's what I've heard. But then it's on, whether it's us as leaders or, direct managers or other leaders on the team to figure out what they're going to do about it. And, in my career, a lot of the what are you going to do about it tends to be a lot of what Jeremy Barrios said, where it's trying to connect with people individually to understand first, and then working to either find a different role for them to squeeze into. Perhaps there's another opportunity within the team that they're part of. I've had examples in my career where sometimes changing engagement is as simple as changing the team that a person's on. And it's like a light bulb just goes off with that person, that once you throw them into a new environment, perhaps it's because there were other people in the group that were disengaged as well, or perhaps there were some other toxic personalities. Taking a person who's been disengaged and putting them in a new environment, whether that's a new team, a new department, can make all the difference.
Early on in the conversation, Susan put on the table the idea of active listening. How much of getting people re-engaged is active listening?
I think that, what both Jeremy's touched on, it's easier for me, I just say Jeremy's, but both Jeremy's touched on was listening to the person, talking and understanding them. Fundamentally, if we can figure out what motivates people, then we can engage them. Right. This is why, like, Ken Blanchard, situational leadership, he talks about understanding what drives people. Like, if you can get to that, you can motivate them inside of what they're already motivated about, and now they're going to be engaged. But we make this assumption that everybody's motivated by the same thing. And I've also heard we make the assumption that everybody's motivated by money. And it's funny because if you ask people to say, what are your staff motivated by? They'll say money, and they'll say, what are you motivated by? And you say appreciation, accomplishing tasks. Like, what? Nobody says I'm motivated by money, but everybody believes everybody else is motivated by money. And then the funny thing is, I'm now at a part of my career where, to some degree, I am motivated by money. Like, there are some contracts, feel like, why are you on that contract? Like, to get paid. And then it's like, why am I doing this with Tom? It's when I'm not getting paid. So this is like a different motivation. So, but it's rare that's, if you only have one job, you are likely not just there because of money. If you have multiple jobs, you might have one that you're like, this is the cash cow so that I do the thing I love over here.
I thought I heard that Tom wasn't paying us for this. Is that right?
I mean, you might be getting paid. I'm not.
Yeah.
If you are, I'm going to go back to my 75% Susan, which is not nearly as good as the 100%. So
I don't
And
know.
if he's paid in
I
Canadian.
would be really thrilled, even if it was just 75%. Yeah,
okay.
you're spot on. What were you going to say, Mr. Barrio?
Well, for me, it's like 70% because of the exchange rate.
Oh,
International crowd.
I like the international. I spend a lot of time working in Canada, so I appreciate the international joke.
Yeah, it is good. So, two things before we wrap up. Any of you want to call who's going to win the 2022 World Cup on Sunday? Okay, I hear one.
It's got to be Argentina. I mean, the Lionel Messi story, right? This is the way the story ends. It ends with him hoisting that World Cup trophy, and then, he finishes out the season with his club team, and then he shows up in America next year
and plays
to play in Miami for a while, and make a whole lot of money, and then that's he rides off into the sunset. That's the fairy tale.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
I stopped watching after Canada got booted out.
And that was a nice pun. Booted out.
Well, I gotta put a vote in for Argentina. My grandfather was born in Argentina. He's Italian. His father was an importer-exporter. And if anyone's ever been to Argentina, there's a lot of like Italian products, Italian leathers, things like that. That we're talking back in the 1800s. So he was born there, even though he's Italian descent. And then he actually came to Ellis Island and moved to the US. So I was confused by it as a child, but he had like a cup or espresso cup that had an Argentina flag on. I was like, what? Oh, I'm Argentina. I'm like, I thought you were Italian, Grandpa. It's like, I'm both. So go Argentina for Grandpa Parente.
Okay, so there we go. Excellent. Well, I'm still looking for a bar in lovely Cleveland that'll be open on 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, despite the blue laws, to actually watch the game.
Well, who are you taking, Tom?
What?
Who are you taking?
I do like the Messi story. I don't know how anybody beats Le Bleu. Or is it Les Bleus? Jeremy?
Le Bleu.
Les Bleus. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how anybody beats France.
Well, if you want to drink at 10 a.m., just come to Toronto. Bars are open.
I'm flying on Monday morning, so I would, but the driving back will kill me to catch a plane on 7:00. Before we wrap, last real question, and this is a real question. What in the world that we live in, the project software development world, what do you want from 2023? What's the one wish that you want? You have a magic wand for one wish apiece.
The word that came to mind, just like, inspired, innovation. I feel like, we're all still sort of like getting out of that survival mode of the pandemic. And when you're in survival mode, you retract. You kind of, the inflation thing too, you retract. I don't want to spend money. I don't have money. I'm worried about my health. I'm worried, like all those things are retract. Innovation is about expansion. It's about creating, and you have to not be afraid to create. I think that would be a really awesome way to go into 2023 is in a space of innovation.
I would like to have some sense of normalcy. I think that within the space where all of us operate, the last few years have been really volatile, whether it's pandemic related work from home or contraction of companies or people moving around to different companies. I think what I'm hopeful for in 2023 is some sense of normalcy for at least a little while to get back into whatever flow looks like in this weird hybrid world that all of us are living in.
For me, I would say I just finished reading The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. So I guess my wish would be that more people start playing the infinite game and not a finite game, with how things are, like how to get stuff done, how to move forward, be forward thinking. To Susan's part about being like, innovative, like get that innovation out. Like think about like the company 5, 6, 7 years down the road. Where do you see it going? What do you see happening after you leave? I've always treated it that way. Every role I've had, I've treated that way. I didn't want to leave, okay, I'm leaving, boom, done, out the door. I want to leave it in a better place than than I came in, and that they could still thrive without me being there. Unless they completely screw it up, then that's a whole other story. But I want to leave a place where, cool, you guys are good. You don't need me anymore. The whole Nana McPhee thing.
I want to thank all three of you. This is as always a phenomenal part of the year. I look forward to it every year. I don't know. I think every once in a while about turning off the recorder and hanging up the podcast. And then I think about actually that I would miss having the conversations that we have, and that is, and y'all just get to do it once, right? I get to edit this stuff and sit there and think about it in great detail. And I can't tell you how many times walking down the street, thinking about, even though I might not be playing it as I'm walking the dog, but thinking through some of the things that we've talked about, a light bulb goes off, or I think of something else. I try to write down, oh my gosh, I got to ask Susan this next time we get together. Those sorts of things. So I just thank you all for being here. Thank you for, well, not only being here and being here for me, but being here for the audience. And I hope everybody enjoys this as much as I do. Absolute last item. Mr. Barrio, how can people continue the conversation with you?
You can get a hold of me through LinkedIn. Just do a quick search for Jeremy Barrio in Toronto. I'm the only one here. Or you can reach me through my website at barrioandassociates.com. And you can catch me there, email, chat. I'm good to go.
Susan, how can people continue the conversation?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Susan Parente. It actually says I'm in the DC area, kind of in Delaware, between DC and New York, but they won't let you pick more than one, at least not yet, but hopefully one day. I don't know if you'll find a lot of Susan Prentes, but I have a bridge in the background, and my theme is like building bridges, which I really like to, part of creating and innovating, I guess. Or you can certainly email me, Parente, Parente, at S as in Sam, the number 3 -tec.com. Thank you.
Mr. Willits.
Like Jeremy and Susan, you can find me on LinkedIn, Jeremy Willits on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only one there. Or you can find me on my website, jeremywillits.com.
Again, until next year, it's been phenomenal. And Jeremy was this week. I think John is actually the next week. And then Susan. And we will roll forward another year. Well, about January 28th kicks off year 17 of the podcast.
Wow.
Like McDonald's, millions and millions served.
Like McDonald's, less greasy. So we're
Yes.
This is healthy. It's healthy. The podcast is healthier for you, even though it is spammy. It's healthier for you.
Process improvement is a never-ending journey. Why do so many people ask, are we there yet?